can't take people.
Allora, dovevamo stancare un po' di gente.
Do you guys, would you rather have green?
We already had it.
We had it, okay, perfect.
Seth, I'm ready when you are.
Okay. What you said? Yes. All right. We have anyone on the line? No. Nothing present. All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Public Schools Board of Education to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, we'll start as usual with our school/community session and public participation. Does not appear we have anyone participating this evening, at least so far. So we'll move on to item 3, our board event student representatives reports. Brooke and Grace.
So the first thing on our agenda is exams. So they wrapped up before Thanksgiving break, and I think the students really appreciated having that kind of closure before the long break. And then when you get back, it's a really nice reset. You're rested and ready to start T2. So I really appreciated that. I know my classmates really liked kind of diving into trimester 2 with some new energy and getting a new schedule right as you came back. So that's really appreciated by the students. And then there was a humbug play, and Mr. Salvatore was very impressed. He thought it was well done. I didn't have a chance to attend, but it seems like the number of attendance wasn't as high as they kind of expected, which is unfortunate because they put so much work into it, and it's supposed to be really well done. But they're really trying to promote their upcoming play in the spring, which is Little Shops of Horrors. And as class officers, we're also trying to really spread that word because they do deserve all the credit, and it's a lot of time and commitment that they put into it. And then we have the chorus concert on Thursday, which is supposed to be really good. I've heard them practicing during lunch and sounds great to me. And then we have the jazz concert next Wednesday, which is also supposed to be a really impressive performance.
Yeah. And then going on to athletics, sadly, our fall season has officially ended this weekend. It's all right. There are some really great moments. There's some SEC champs. I know swimming was runner-up for states, so it was awesome. So we should be going into the winter season with a positive mindset. And we kind of kicked it off today with the SEC Captain Council, which was a really positive experience, at least for me. This is my first time going. But basically, they grouped you up into sports by all the captains for like my face gymnastics went together, and we talked about ways in which we want to improve leadership throughout the sport, and we want to leave it on a better note. So basically, we're talking about how we want to treat the opponents, how we want to treat the officials, and how we want to respond when fans are not acting the way that they're supposed to be. So we had a lot of brainstorming, and it seemed to be really productive. Everyone seemed on tasks. So I think this is like a super great opportunity for our leaders to and then pass down this information to everyone else. So super great. And then moving forward, this week, I know this is not athletic based, but next week we are getting into the holiday spirit, and we are having a spirit week, which is going to be, they tried to make it as easy as possible, trying to like make this themes kind of so everyone can participate. Because in the past, when we had some more specific themes, there wasn't as much student participation. So we're hoping that everyone gets into the spirit. And then on Friday is the big day before break. In the morning, they're having the marching band is going to be playing holiday music for the wake-up call, which is the first time that's ever happened, which is going to be super fun. And then throughout the day, they're going to be having some Christmas cookie decorating in the caf. And so all the lunchrooms will have an opportunity to do that. And we'll end off the day with a pep rally, which is so fun always. And it's really to celebrate the blue ribbon recognition, but we're not going to be really focusing on that. This is going to be like a little tiny blurb, just like telling everyone that's why it's happening. But they want to really get everyone excited and get everyone on a good, happy note before the end of the year. So we have a really fun week next week. So we'll see.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Enjoy the break.
Okay, superintendent's report. Contact our help him do it.
Thank you. Please. Oh, awesome. I'll be enjoying that.
Bye, girls.
Bye.
So as we've shared a few times with the board, we in all good intentions put out a 2 years of calendar. You know, to get ahead of the reorg. Our main reason for doing so was to have as long a summer as possible this coming up summer, and to allow, you know, for allowing staff and facilities to get ready for the reorg. But when the local area calendar started coming out, so Learn puts out a recommended calendar, and then the districts around us pretty much adopt that as is. There's not much difference from that for lots of reasons. And I know I've shared those before. And we would like to stay with the same break that the Learn area does. So from Guilford all the way through, you know, basically to Rhode Island, and then above us. So, you know, pretty much where all our employees come from, as well as most of the teams where we'd be competing against spring sports when they come around and things like that. So we would like to move the April break that we originally had shared. We did take it off the calendar and inform the board of that because we expected some you know, people to potentially be planning their lives around that. So we didn't want them to do that. We haven't had anybody contact the office looking for when our break is in April of 2026. So what we are proposing, which is what everybody that went with, is April 13th through the 17th for our April break. And then there is one other move that I'm recommending that the board has not heard about, but it doesn't impact students. It just impacts staff. We traditionally have had staff have a professional development day on a holiday in October, on October 13th in 2025. And so what I'm proposing to do is put that as a day in August, mainly to allow staff to get ready for the reorg, get their classrooms in order, unpack their boxes. We talked about that at facilities. I know facilities is going to talk about that. We have a pretty complicated move going on. And then each year we have more professional development that either comes from the state as mandates, that Gail would like to do with staff, or principals need time with staff. So this will give us a full 5 days. I don't expect that would be repeated annually. This would be a one-time kind of calendar special that we have five days you know, ahead of time. So I think that was some feedback from staff that they prefer that, as well as administration. The full administration team supported that.
So it's not adding an extra day, it's swapping and.
It's swapping
moving
the
the October one
Yeah.
to August.
Yes, yeah, so it's a staff day, so it doesn't impact students whatsoever. Students aren't starting any earlier or have a different day off. It's just that staff will have that day off. The teaching staff will have that day off specifically. Thank you. In October, and then they'd come back a day earlier. So that will be up for a vote later, as well as future use of buildings. And so we have, as we've talked about as well, a vote on the calendar tonight to turn TCLC, Ryerson and Jeffrey back to the town. We will no longer be operating them, as you know, at the end of 24-25 school year. We would look to maintain the buildings as still school buildings until January 1st of 2026. So we would take 6 months of that. I have that in the budget that will be proposed, later or in January. The budget that I'll propose to the board, the administration's budget, will have 6 months of maintenance. So I've had several conversations with the town staff on this, and we will be in and out of those buildings, I predict, for those 6 months, kind of finalizing moves, getting materials that we still need. Our first obligation will be to get the school year started, and then, the disposal of items we don't need, all those things will take place, in that fall time frame and beyond. But, we thought that was a good place to put that break, and at that point, we would turn those buildings over to the town.
So the Ryerson will stay intact?
Ryerson would stay intact till January 1st for us, and then we would hand it over to the town.
Property, it will stay intact, it will not be imploded. It will not be.
So
Demolished.
That's a town, that's a,
Oh.
so that's a town decision. We never get to make those decisions.
Okay.
Our only
'Cause
obligation
I
is to
guess
turn
I
it
was
back.
always
Yes.
under the impression that that was part, that Ryerson, not the other two schools, but
Correct.
that was part of the original.
Yes, and that will still happen, is my understanding, but that's a town decision, like the board has no determination of that. There is funding still available for that, I believe, on the project, yeah. But it's a town decision, and I think we're all on the same page on that, you know, in terms of the board and the town leaders. Yeah. And then I know last time you had we had Adam Levice come forward and present a proposal. We have a vote on that later on the agenda tonight, but we have Adam with us to answer any questions.
Hi, Adam. Welcome, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So as Dr. Cook mentioned, I'll be pretty brief here. The two items up for consideration this evening are the phase 3 and phase 4 package approvals for the new Neck River Rental Elementary. Package 3 is the furniture and AVIT equipment, and baked within there are some of the maintenance equipment items. And then package 4 are the playgrounds. If you're wondering why we're doing two packages on the same date, that was the original structure for the packaging. We thought there might be some staggering of dates, but they ended up just aligning in terms of when we could do the approvals and get the meeting with the state. So that's why we're doing them simultaneously, but there are technically two votes. And ultimately, if there are approvals, those would result in two forms that both Dr. Cook and Seth would sign on behalf of Superintendent's Office and the Board of Education respectively. Again, this is all the same as we had done with our phase 1 and phase 2 packages, where in effect, the Board of Education is affirming that the scope contained therein aligns with the intent of the project, the intent of the education specifications to ultimately deliver a building that supports the needs of the district. I will say that, as I mentioned in the last time I was here for the November 12th meeting, it's been a robust process, and really it's end user stakeholder driven, much more even so than the construction project. A lot of the building is dictated by building codes or fire codes or standards of that nature. The furniture packages, the playground packages, those are much more heavily driven by what does the principal, what the staff, the administration, what do you need to run the building? How many chairs, how many have you? Obviously heavy input from the education specifications on students per room and things of that nature, but when they're getting down to the nitty gritty of how they stack or what types of tables work best with the paras, all those conversations drive the development of these packages. And that was led by Tecton, the architect team, and they're the ones that compiled the packages that were submitted to you in your Board of Education packets for this evening. So with that, it's like I said, it's a pretty straightforward piece on my part. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, but
How
otherwise.
do they decide, like, what, how many, do they bid out for that, or do they know companies, or?
That's a good question. So for the vast majority of the items, they're sourced off of pre-competitively bid state contracts. So that way we're not putting it out to bid and you're not sure potentially what share you might get. It might be a similar. With this, it's contracting that's gone through, been competitively bid, and you can pick which product you're getting. So the vast majority of the items within those packages are on state contracts. There are a few that either exceed state contract limits. So for example, the district standard is Promethean smart boards, if you will, in the rooms. There is a state contract for that, but because of the quantity that will be needed for the school, we do have to go out to bid and get approval from the state to be able to sole source that Promethean board. But ultimately, when we first kicked off the exercise, the goal was to try to maximize the competitive power of the state contracts, the knowing what's going in there, knowing what the pricing is. We're not playing a huge guessing game on bid day to see if we're way over budget or way under budget. We know what the pricing is going to be. That translated in a much more controlled environment to get the teachers and staff what they need.
Are there any state grants available at all for?
This all runs through the.
No,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
This all runs through the state grant project. So
It
this
does,
is
okay.
yes.
Okay.
These votes tonight are effectively to authorize the project to sit down with the state to get the state's buy-in on what's eligible, what's not.
Okay.
the overwhelming majority should be eligible.
Right.
And then the town would receive its reimbursement that way.
Right, thank you.
So in effect, we'll get like a 28% reimbursement.
Yes.
So, okay, good. Does anyone have any other questions now? I know that Diane asked a couple of questions by email because she wasn't able to be at the meeting tonight. And her questions were basically addressed by Adam already in that she had a concern as to whether teachers and the end users at the school had input into the design of the FF&E furnishing items, and the answer is obviously yes, they were heavily involved from the outset. And also, if, as I remember, Tecton has folks on staff who are special, I forget what the designation is, but it's like ergonomic specialist designers or something that, what, do you remember what that?
There was early in design, they had I know the staff you're talking about that has that sort of a holistic environmental background on.
Yeah.
I'm not using the terms correctly either because it's, again, I'm not an
Yeah.
architect, but yes, they have her on staff as well as several interior designers within their staffing ranks that pull together options in response to what the school staff, the district staff are looking for to create the options, create the selections and match it up. So, yeah, so it's a pretty robust team.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? And I think what I'm gonna do, if it's okay, is I will entertain a motion to move action items 10 and 11 up to before our after the consent agenda, but before the board and committee reports. So that way, you know, we can get Adam out of here. I know he has a young child, so we'll take pity on him. So I don't know if you want to, well, we can't do that right now because we're still in the middle of your report. But after your report, we can do that.
Last thing I had for my report was that the holiday break begins as our students shared on December 20th, and school resumes on January 2nd. We wish everybody a great holiday.
Any questions for Craig in the superintendent's report? Thank you, Adam, and if, don't go far. We're gonna be voting shortly. Okay, so next I will entertain a motion to address action items 10 and 11 on the agenda. Right after agenda item number 8. So it'll be after the motion to approve the consent agenda and before the board committees and liaison updates.
So moved.
Emily, thank you. Do I have a second? Second, Stephen, okay. Those 10 and 11 here. All right, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of moving items 10 and 11 to before action item, before item number 9, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, so that passes 7-0, so we will get to those and let Adam leave a little bit early. So thank you. Next item is board members' comments. Do we have any board member comments? Comments? Employees? All right, not surprisingly, I have a couple. Just very quickly, the National Blue Ribbon School celebration at the high school occurred today for faculty and staff. Several of us attended, which was appreciated by those in attendance. I spoke briefly on behalf of the board. That was well received, and it's just, again, it is so special what is going on district-wide right now. And that culminating in our upper building, the high school, receiving this you know, amazing rare award. It's good work that we're doing. We were thanked for our work and our contribution on several occasions. And we just greatly appreciate all that the staff and faculty and administrators at Daniel Hand High School do. And quite honestly, it's the students as well. They stay focused, they stay on task, and they accept our curriculum very well. So it's just, it's a well-oiled machine. And it's nice to just have any involvement at all adjacent to that. I'm gonna make a shameless plug once again that as many board members attend as can, the CABE Area 8 Legislative Breakfast. It's gonna be in Westbrook again at Westbrook High School at 9 a.m. on December 19th. So we can arrange carpooling if anybody wants, but it would be great if we could have a good showing to that. And that's it. Thank you. So unless any other board members have developed comments they want to give, no? Okay. Yes, go ahead, Steve.
At today's Blue Ribbon activity, it was particularly nice to see us so well appreciated by the State Department of Ed representative that spoke to our curriculum development.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
The irony is not lost on anybody. So, thank you very much. Next is audience response to information presented. Do we have any audience in the peanut gallery? No, okay. Moving on to item 7, the consent agenda. I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda. So, Stephen, seconded by Galen, thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda? No discussion, and there were a few questions posed by Diane and answered by the administration, and it was good. So thank you. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Yes, it's 7-0. Thank you. All right, so now, per our prior vote, we will move to action item 10, and I will entertain, and this is going to be a lot, so listen closely. I will entertain a motion to approve the Phase 3 furniture, fixtures, equipment, FF&E, and audiovisual IT package, and authorize the project to proceed with state final plan review and subsequent procurement. The Phase 3 package is comprised of plans and the project manual dated 11/27/24, along with supporting state grant process documentation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Emily, do I have a second?
Second.
Mary Ann, thank you. Any discussion on the Phase 3? Now, this is the FF&E. The next action item, just so we're all clear, the next action item is going to be the playground package. So we're only voting on the furniture, fixtures, and equipment right now. Any discussion, any questions for Adam while he's here? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of passing and approving the Phase 3 package, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. 7-0. All right, I will entertain an action item. Action item 11 that we just moved. I will entertain a motion to approve the Phase 4 playground package and authorize the project to proceed with state final plan review and subsequent procurement. The Phase 4 package is comprised of plans and the project manual dated 11/27/24, along with supporting state grant process documentation. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Emily, do I have a second? Stephen, thank you. All right, and just to be clear, and on the last one as well, all this information was available to us by link before this meeting, so I'm assuming everybody had an opportunity to review it. Any questions or discussion, questions for Adam while he's here?
So basically the same process.
Yes.
What else? Any discussion? Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the Phase 4 playground package, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we go backwards in time. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. All right, now item 9, originally titled 9 on the agenda, board committees and liaison updates, curriculum and student development, which met tonight. Stephen.
Yes. The Curriculum and Student Development Committee met this evening. And in attendance was Mary Ann and myself. Seth, Greg and Gail. First item was a geometry textbook adoption presentation, and in the presentation it was made clear that it was an extensive and deep process looking at what the state standards are, what colleges are asking for in terms of geometry curriculum, what other districts are using and what they have felt has been successful and not successful. And then certainly, in district conversations, but the focus was what are the essential concepts that we want to see coming out of the geometry coursework among various program options in terms of curriculum. The curriculum that was selected that they're seeking board approval for is over on the table, and people are certainly welcome to take a look at it. One of the strengths that that they were certainly looking at in this process was that it provided opportunity for application of applied learning of geometric principles and repetitive practice, and it felt like it met that. Part of the discussion during the meeting, because we've had many curricular meetings where the focus of the conversation has been teacher developed curriculum. Rarely do we see, with the exception of AP classes, that it leads with textbook. And so part of the question was, what is the balance between adopting a textbook and maintaining what is Madison's longstanding practice of teachers working together and really reflecting and developing the curriculum. And the answer to that was essentially this curriculum allowed a maximum flexibility in terms of utilizing and shifting around units based upon what the teachers saw as the proper sequence. The other part of the answer is the nature of mathematics in particular is such a huge body of essential concept and outcomes that the need for a textbook and a more direct curriculum to draw from is a little stronger than you would see in other subject areas. So, it was a good discussion and it was a good presentation. And, as we as a committee looked at, consistent theme of teacher involvement and investment in the curriculum, I felt, and I think the committee members would agree, that we felt, that there was due diligence on the part of the team as they looked at that. Next part of the agenda was Algebra 1, and although it's on the agenda as presenting the Algebra 1 curriculum, which it was, it really is a much broader conversation. It was really about the shift from eliminating level 3 to level 2 in the Algebra 1 course, adapting and adjusting to a subset of students that often struggle with mathematics and, you know, had been previously locked into, you know, level 3 classes. You know, how that has been managed and continues to be evolving is, you know, a fascinating model of co-teaching, where regular ed teachers and special ed teachers are working together. Different approaches in terms of grouping kids heterogeneously, monitoring student progress, and using math labs. Basically, it's making commitment to not let kids fail and still maintaining standards of the algebra curriculum. In the presentation of note were two things in my humble opinion. One was the recognition and the need for ongoing professional learning community meetings among the teachers and the team that are working in this courses. And, you know, the coordinator for the math chose to teach one of those classes, which, you know, I was happy to hear, and it shows the commitment of following the process and really learning from how we can do this better. So, you know, clearly it's evolving. I mean, the other point that came up in the conversation is, you know, there's evidence of mobility within those classrooms of kids that, you know, people looked at and go, you know, there's some significant gaps in their math history and learning. You know, in traditional level classes, those kids may be stuck, you know, with perhaps, you know, less expectation. And, you know, the teachers are discovering with this change format and support, kids that they thought would probably be stuck for a while have really risen and, you know, and done very well and moved into, you know, higher performance, which is exactly what the initial idea for changing this was about. So yes, it was about Algebra 1, but yes, it really was about changing up a model and looking at other ways and better ways for reaching kids that may struggle, which, you know, I'm sure all of the board members fully appreciates because we've talked about these things so many times. The third part in terms of curriculum updates was an art update. That was a relatively short presentation, and, you know, it was about the kids pursuing their art on some of the programs like Instagram and TikTok, and how that generates excitement, and how, I mean, some of the work that you see behind us, you know, generating posters and, you know, utilizing, you know, some of the vehicles that exist today to be able to produce artwork. There was some discussion, and I'll say quite frankly, was, you know, I raised the issue of, you know, it's a challenge for this district, in my opinion, and for this board to look at the arts in the relation of how the world is changing really rapidly. So, you know, at one point in time, we would all readily accept that, yeah, you know, an art program that teaches kids how to paint and work with clay and learn how to draw and learn those skills are just fundamental to an art program. And quite frankly, you know, probably should be and continue to be, but that's another discussion. You know, the question of what do we want art to be, you know, visual arts, applied arts, music, and so forth, in a world where you can create extremely good art in a matter of seconds, minutes, you know, through AI. You know, the idea that artistic expression and being able to express things that are important and come from, you know, is part of a human capacity. So, you know, where we used to look at art and go, you know, there's careers in art. You can become a painter or a graphic artist or whatever. All of those things are changing, and they're changing really rapidly. And, you know, it's going to behoove this board and, you know, this district to take a step back and try and get a sense of, so what are the essential elements, and fundamentally, do we want art to be as part of our young people's education. So, the last part, I mean, it was an interesting meeting on every level, really. Was a presentation by Gail that basically said, you know, they did the presentation at the NEASC conference. And to Gail's surprise, you know, it was a larger audience than she expected, and it was a significant international audience. And the result of that over the last couple of months has been a marked increase in inquiries, visits to our website and inquiries to this district in terms of how do we do what we do, and particularly in relation to profiles of a graduate. You know, and Gail was sharing, you know, it's part of the conference. She had asked, you know, so how many people, you know, how many districts have been working on profiles of a graduate for over 5 years, which we have. And that was a very small number. And then how many, like 3 years? And then how many 2 years, which was the bulk.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, it's exciting to me because it's in a world where lots of what happens in schools is packages and bought. They're asking the right questions, they're right, you know, and they're coming to the right place. They're asking this district, so how do you incorporate profiles of a graduate? And that's not something you buy. I mean, that is a process, you know, that unfolds that has great potential for schools if they adopt it. So, you know, I found that interesting and exciting, and you know, you must have done a great job at that conference that they looked at it and said, these are the people that we need to talk to. So anyway, so that was basically it. Anybody has any questions? No, there was no public comment, and we adjourned at 6:25.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions for Steve?
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. Okay, Facilities Committee. I know you met this evening as well. Emily.
Yes, the facilities committee met this evening at 6:30. Peter gave us a whole bunch of updates on the many things happening in the district. Started with the Green Hill and Mungertown sidewalk project. Just how it is scheduled to work is that we pay for the design, and then the next step goes to the town to do a traffic study and pay for the construction. So we have extended, as you all may recall, our support for the sidewalk project, and it's moving forward with the town. Over at Brown School, they're plugging ahead with playground work, the pre-K room conversion. We talked about that after our last tour. There's going to be some work over April break, and he also mentioned interior and exterior signage and wayfaring. All the exterior signage for the schools, Brown, Polson, Neck River, will be matching and will look very nice. We look forward to that. Over at Hand, the baseball and softball field turfs will be replaced. We're in the design process for that. One of the rooftop units at the high school failed today. So as he said, the new ones can't come soon enough. Fortunately, we have the spare parts to make it work, and it should be fixed, Peter said, in the next week or so. But we'll be glad to see that project end. And they will be, as you know, replaced June of 2025. It should be about 3 weeks for that work to be done. Over at Polson, they're moving forward with HVAC work to be done over the summer of 2026. They do have bi-weekly project team meetings, auditorium renovations moving forward. All the things are happening over there. Neck River, he did mention they have a new plan for the courtyard plantings. Apparently at one point they had, did he say 500?
Yes. Yeah.
500 plants that they're gonna put in there, but they brought that down to more like 150. Much hardier plants, more low maintenance plants and planting. So that's good. And then we talked about district moving plans for this coming summer. They're having coordination meetings, they have a moving company that has, I think we have like 4,000 boxes. And each teacher gets an allotment of boxes, around 40, 50 boxes. He said if the teacher is moving, they pack their own belongings, not their own personal belongings, but like their school, there's, books and all that for the school, the classroom. And then the moving company moves those boxes and the bigger items. It's gonna be quite a process. He said the goal is for things to only move once, because if you think about, there might, things from Jeffrey might go to Nick River or might go to Brown, but then things from Brown might go somewhere else, but then the goal is to then use Ryerson and Jeffrey as holding places for that furniture. And then once we sort of see what we need and offer it to other schools or nonprofits or organizations, or maybe the town, to get through as much as we can. We talked about how there's so much that Peter and his team is keeping track of, and then as Craig pointed out, and also the day-to-day work of a facilities director managing the building, the custodians and the maintenance. So he seems to be keeping track of all of it. There was no public comment and we adjourned at about 7 o'clock.
The only thing that I would add is that, just for everyone's, knowledge, the estimated cost of the sidewalk projects is when it's all said and done, is estimated to come in between 1.5 million and $3 million, of which everything except for the planning dollars will be covered through grant money. So, the board has expressed an interest in having the project go forward. It's not really gonna cost the town much at all to ensure the safety of our students. Any questions for Emily?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
The board is responsible for what portion of that project?
Just
Zero.
well, the planning.
Well,
and
the plan,
design
some of the
work.
planning.
Yeah.
That was already done, that was it.
Okay, and how much was that?
She said it was not very much, I can look back. He didn't say the price, the cost today.
I don't think he did.
He did.
We can get that for you.
Have we already paid for that?
It's already been a lot.
It's been a lot of.
Yeah. He didn't say, he said it was not very much, but we did that.
Yeah.
And then the town would maintain, do maintenance on sidewalks thereafter, like snow shoveling, or how does that work?
No.
Residents.
The residents.
It's the responsibility. And it has been a source of contention by some of the abutting property owners who are concerned about taking on liability. I asked about that during the prior meeting, and Peter Anderson, our facilities director, responded basically that they're looking to do some creative designing. And this is why the cost of it might be a little bit more, like crossing the street a couple times, adding a bridge, like things that the local abutting property owners won't necessarily have responsibility for maintaining. Okay.
I think I'm missing something. So if we allotted money for the planning of the sidewalks. In what budget? In 24, 25?
I think it was included in part of the school
construction.
Yeah. Schools renewal.
But we had never allotted for the sidewalk because.
Yeah, because that wasn't gonna be our responsibility, it was gonna be under the grant.
So right, so the town doesn't pay anything.
I think if I'm correct, and I believe this grant is paid in advance as opposed to a reimbursement grant. So the town would not, in fact, have to lay out anything other than the planning costs, which we hire a planning company.
But we as the Board of Ed have paid for the planning costs, correct?
No, we've only paid for a portion of it. It's been a
Okay.
split project.
Perfect, that's what I was.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
only paid for, I think, the smaller portion of it, and any further planning, it's already been
Paid for the
detached.
design.
So that any further design planning will be done on the town's dollar and not on ours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Emily. Finance Committee, Galen.
Thank you, Seth. We have not met. Our next committee meeting is a week from now on the 17th.
Thank you. Personnel Committee, Maureen.
The Personnel Committee has not met.
Okay. Policy Committee, Diane is unable to be with us this evening, she's traveling, but Galen, I believe.
Yeah.
So fill in, thank you.
Right, so we have not met, most of the policies in your packet are up for, to waive the second reading and to rescind, because in virtually every case, they are either outdated, not mandatory, or better placed, places like job descriptions. And so this encompasses the usual dozen or so. You want me to read them now, Seth, or do you want to wait for the motion?
No, I'll just read it during the motion. All right, thank you. Okay, any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Galen, for filling in on that. And finally, Learn Liaison, Mary Ann.
They're meeting this Thursday and I will be able to.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we already dispatched with action item 10 and action item 11. Skipping down to action item 12. I need a motion to approve returning the Jeffrey Elementary, Ryerson Elementary, and Town Campus Learning Center buildings to the town of Madison effective January 1st, 2026. That was discussed during the superintendent's report, and also this has been discussed several times over the last few months of our meetings. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Okay, Christine, thank you. Can I get a second? Thanks, Marie. All right, any discussion?
I guess the only discussion or the only concern or question I have is what is gonna happen, what is the town gonna do with those buildings?
Yeah,
And we already
that's-
have one building that.
That's outside of
I understand.
our authority, however, what we. In coordinating with the town to make sure we get them the buildings as soon as they requested them. It gives them maximum flexibility to be able to determine. I do believe that there will be some funds available as originally intended through the schools renewal project to contribute toward or completely cover the demolition of Ryerson, as was potentially one of the plans what the voters voted on with the referendum in February of 22. But other than that, my understanding is there's not any firm no firm ideas yet for how Jeffrey or TCLC will be used. TCLC is a collection of temporary structures, so I would imagine, chances are they'll probably just demolish that and carry those away and build, have another town property there.
In fairness to the town, they can't do anything until we give the keys back. Right, so even with this vote, the board could change its mind and say, no, we want to hold on to a building down the road, so they really can't plan until we give them.
Onto it, but I mean,
Yeah.
we do live in this town and we
Yeah.
do have.
Right, but then what I'm just trying to clarify in terms of the town's sake, because the board could have could hold on to the buildings.
Yeah.
So they can't really do anything until we actually
Oh,
get the
no,
keys
I do
back.
understand.
And we can't demolish the building, we can't, so they have to. we have
Yes,
to
I'm
wait. So
just.
I think that there's been as good of advanced planning in terms of the fate of these three buildings as there could be. Because one of them is portables that Seth shared, put together, that would most likely be just it was a temporary solution 20 years ago. That still is a place to get today, and so I think that has a relatively easy solution to it. They have a plan for Ryerson, and then Jeffrey is still possibly to be operated as a building, so it does have portables as well that could be taken off, and the rest of the building could be operated. So I think the town has some options, whether it's to sell the building, whether it's to do other uses for it. So I think that they've been as thoughtful as they can, but they can't do anything until this action helps them to start the plan. But even still, they can't do anything until we actually get the keys back.
What happens to the insurance on those buildings?
So we would hold on to everything until July 1. And so, for instance, we'll
July
have,
1 of 20.
excuse me, January, sorry.
January 1.
January 1 of
Okay.
26. So for instance, we'll have summer school at Jeffrey this summer. Our only open building for us is Polson and Jeffrey. So summer school will be at Polson and Jeffrey. So we could not, I don't see any really option for us to give it back any sooner than what we're doing.
And, you know, in the past, when we closed Island Avenue School, the town wanted it quickly and we had to basically, and Billy, our prior facilities director, arranged it so that we were out July 1st.
Right.
Right? That's not gonna be possible this time anyway, because it's a much more complex, many buildings involved. We need to use Ryerson and Jeffrey for staging for boxes and move, for the
Right.
move, as you heard during the facilities report. So really, you know, this gives us the breathing room we need, as Craig mentioned during his report, to be able to use out those buildings comfortably without,
Right. So,
without having to
right,
rush.
is there anything, I guess my concern is, since you're gonna transfer the properties over and insurance wise, the town will be, you know, footing that bill, if you will. So then what happens with the condition of the building and how we leave it? Is there any verbiage with regards to that?
They basically take it, and my understanding is they take it as we give it to them,
Okay.
so we hand over the keys, and then they're responsible from January 1.
And really, because of our shared services, it's still Peter Anderson that will be in charge of the building.
Yeah,
You know, so it's.
Right.
it's gonna probably be Kerma that's insuring it,
Yes,
so.
yes. So I think that's where our close relationship helps.
Yeah.
Case in particular.
Good questions, though. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the return of Jeffrey Elementary, Ryerson Elementary, and Town Campus Learning Center buildings to the town of Madison, effective January 1st, 2026. Raise your hand now, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, 7-0. Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Action item 13, I need a motion to approve the revised 2025-2026 calendar.
So moved.
Lee, can I get a second?
Second.
Stephen, thank you. Discussion. Questions for Craig on that? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? One abstention, thank you. 6-0-1. Is the vote, thank you. Action item 14, and this is the obligatory long policy action item. I need a motion to waive the second reading and rescind the following policies. 6080.2 English Language Arts Education, 6080.19.3.4 role of the school psychologist, 6080.19.3.5 role of the school counselors, 6080.19.3.6 role of instructional paraprofessionals, 6080.20 school-wide pre-referral approaches and interventions, parentheses, scientific research-based interventions or SRBI, end parentheses, 6100.14.3 resource center / media centers / school library, 6110.7.2 graduation exercises, 6120 evaluation of instructional programs, 6152 grouping for instruction, and 7110 educational facilities planning and capital programming. Do I have a motion? I'll give this one to Galen. Thank you. Do I have a second? Mary Ann, thank you. Any discussion?
That policy committee is getting a lot of work done.
They are. And I mean, and just again, I guess it bears mentioning for people watching at home. You know, it may sound like we're abandoning some of these important things, but in fact, on the advice of our counsel, a lot of these things are either covered elsewhere in our policies, so it's redundant, or they're covered by state law, or federal law. Or they're just not, applicable anymore, or they're not like common modern practice, things like that. So we are, the policy committee is very carefully reviewing all of these, and nothing is sneaking through that we really feel ought to be continued. But at the same time, how we're benefiting here is we're gonna have a lean, mean, streamlined policy manual that will be easier for the whole community to research, find what they're looking for, apply the concepts, understand what we stand for. So, okay, so any questions or discussion further? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? No, motion carries 7-0. Action item 15. I need a motion to waive the second reading and approve policy 6050, parental access to instructional material. Do I have a motion? Emily, can I get a second?
Second.
Stephen, thank you. All right, so this one had largely to do with making sure that there's transparency in our curriculum materials. And ours have been very transparent for years. We've been avant-garde there, and Gail has been posting those online for several years. So we're ahead of the game. There was a state law to mandate that, but we're already in compliance. So we're really just adopting the council recommended version that comports with what we already do. Any questions or further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Motion carries 7-0. Action item 16. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the November 26th, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Emily, thank you. Can I get a second? Somebody, anybody. Second. All right, Gil. Thanks for being so brave. Okay, vote on the minutes, or any recommended requested edits or anything? Questions, discussion, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? We have one abstention, okay, so that'll be 6-0-1. Motion carries. Any future agenda items? I can ask 7 more times to see if we can get the meeting past 8:30 if you like. No, I'm just kidding. I'll take a motion for adjournment by Maureen. Can I get a second?
Here.
Mary Ann. Thank you. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor of adjourning, aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Who always votes first? Meeting adjourned at 8:28. There you go. That was nice.